Beneath the plains of central Turkey, under streets, houses, farms, and volcanic hills, lies a city designed to disappear. There are no towers marking its position. No walls rise above the landscape. From the surface, the town of Derinkuyu appears ordinary, surrounded by the pale rock formations and open valleys of Cappadocia. Yet hidden beneath it is a vast network of chambers, tunnels, wells, storerooms, stables, churches, and defensive passages descending approximately 85 meters into the earth. Archaeologists have identified numerous underground levels, although only part of the complex has been fully cleared and opened. Estimates suggest that, during periods of danger, thousands of people could retreat below ground with their animals, supplies, and tools, sealing the entrances behind them. This was not a collection of simple caves. It was a concealed urban system engineered for survival. Its corridors narrow without warning, forcing anyone entering to crouch or move in single file. Massive circular stone doors could be rolled across strategic passages from the inside, dividing the city into defensible sections. Vertical shafts carried air deep into the lower chambers, while wells supplied water without requiring inhabitants to return to the surface. Food could be stored in cool rooms protected from heat and weather, while spaces for livestock, cooking, worship, and communal life allowed an entire population to remain hidden for extended periods. The scale becomes difficult to comprehend only a few levels below the surface. Stairways descend through darkness, connecting rooms carved directly from volcanic rock. Some passages are wide enough for groups to gather. Others are so tight that a single defender could stop an advancing enemy. Every turn reveals another chamber, another shaft, or another route disappearing into sections that remain inaccessible. The deeper the city descends, the less it resembles a temporary shelter, and the more it feels like an alternative civilization beneath the visible one. Derinkuyu became widely known in the 20th century after underground passages were exposed beneath homes in the town. The popular story claims that a resident renovating his house broke through a wall and discovered a tunnel leading into the complex. Although the details vary, the essential revelation remains extraordinary. Ordinary buildings on the surface were connected to an underground landscape whose true extent had been forgotten. When investigators began clearing the passages, they uncovered a structure far larger than expected. Rooms opened into additional rooms. Staircases continued downward. Ventilation shafts extended through multiple levels, while concealed tunnels appeared to lead toward other settlements in the region. Derinkuyu was not an isolated cave carved for a single family. It formed part of Cappadocia's broader tradition of underground construction, where generations transformed soft volcanic stone into homes, monasteries, storage rooms, and defensive refuges. But Derinkuyu pushed that tradition to an extraordinary scale. The city appears to have evolved over centuries rather than emerging from a single construction campaign. Different communities likely expanded it for different reasons. Early chambers may have served as storage areas or temporary shelters. Later inhabitants enlarged the network, added religious spaces, strengthened defenses, and created deeper levels capable of supporting longer periods of isolation. Phrygians, Persians, Romans, and Byzantine Christians have all been associated with phases of its development, although no single civilization can be credited with the entire complex. That uncertainty is central to the mystery. There is no surviving master plan. No inscription identifies the first architect. No historical record describes the moment when a ruler ordered an underground city to be built. Instead, the structure seems to have grown gradually, shaped by repeated invasions, religious conflict, political instability, and the practical knowledge of people who understood the rock beneath their homes. Above ground, armies could burn crops, occupy roads, surround villages, and search houses. Below ground, their advantages disappeared. Horses could not charge through the narrow tunnels. Large groups of soldiers could not advance together. Smoke, noise, and movement were difficult to detect when entrances were concealed. A community could seemingly vanish, leaving an enemy to confront empty buildings while thousands waited silently beneath the earth. Yet hiding was only the first challenge. Sealing thousands of people underground created new dangers. Air could become poisonous. Wells could be contaminated. Food could spoil. Fire could consume limited oxygen. Waste, disease, fear, and overcrowding could turn the refuge into a tomb. Derinkuyu survived because its builders anticipated many of these threats and carved solutions directly into them. The existence of Derinkuyu is remarkable. The way it was built is even more astonishing. At first glance, carving an underground city 85 meters beneath the surface seems almost impossible without modern machinery. But the people who created Derinkuyu possessed only simple iron tools, patience, and an intimate understanding of the unusual landscape they inhabited. That landscape was the real architect. Millions of years ago, volcanic eruptions covered central Anatolia with thick layers of ash that gradually hardened into a porous rock known as tuff. Unlike granite or limestone, tuff is soft enough to carve with hand tools when freshly exposed, yet hardens after prolonged contact with air. This rare geological combination made Cappadocia one of the few places on Earth where entire underground settlements could be excavated by human labor alone. Nature provided the raw material. Human ingenuity transformed it into a city. The builders did not simply dig downward. They approached the rock as architects. Chambers were positioned to support the weight above them. Thick columns of untouched stone served as natural pillars, while rounded ceilings distributed pressure more evenly than flat ones. Corridors rarely ran perfectly straight, reducing the risk that cracks could spread through multiple sections. Creating rooms underground was only the beginning. The real challenge was making them habitable. Without fresh air, an underground refuge quickly becomes deadly. Carbon dioxide builds up, oxygen declines, and smoke from cooking fires fills enclosed spaces. Derinkuyu solved this with one of the most sophisticated passive ventilation systems of the ancient world. A massive vertical shaft ran from the surface to the deepest levels, with dozens of smaller passages branching from it. Additional ventilation shafts created a network that continuously exchanged underground air with the atmosphere. No machinery was required. Differences in temperature and air pressure naturally produced constant airflow. Even today, visitors several levels underground can still feel gentle currents moving through corridors carved more than 1,000 years ago. Air alone, however, could not sustain thousands of people. Water was equally essential. Instead of relying on surface wells that enemies could poison or control, the builders excavated deep wells inside the city, allowing residents to draw water without exposing themselves during a siege. Food storage followed the same principle. Large chambers maintained stable temperatures, protecting grain and preserved foods from spoilage. Wine presses carved into the rock suggest that production continued underground when necessary, while kitchens were positioned so smoke could be carried away efficiently through the ventilation system. Even livestock had designated areas near the entrances, making them easier to bring inside, while keeping waste away from residential spaces below. Their body heat also helped warm nearby chambers during colder months. Perhaps the most remarkable feature of Derinkuyu is that almost nothing inside it exists by accident. A staircase regulated movement between defensive zones. Ventilation shafts also served as communication routes. Storage rooms reinforced surrounding walls while preserving food. Wells provided both water and strategic independence. Every space performed multiple functions because every cubic meter carved from solid rock demanded enormous effort. This was not an underground cave that gradually became a city. It was a city designed according to the unforgiving rules of the underground. And nowhere is that planning more evident than in the defensive system that could transform these quiet tunnels into one of the most secure fortresses of the ancient world. The deeper archaeologists explored Derinkuyu, the clearer it became that this underground city had never been intended as a permanent home. Although it contained food storage, wells, workshops, churches, and living quarters, its layout reveals a different priority. Nearly every architectural decision was shaped by defense rather than comfort. Unlike the monumental fortresses of the ancient world, Derinkuyu relied on the opposite philosophy, transforming the underground itself into a weapon by forcing attackers to fight on the defenders' terms. Throughout Anatolia's history, this strategy made perfect sense. The region lay at the crossroads of empires and endured repeated invasions by Assyrians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Seljuks, and many others. Surface settlements could rarely survive such campaigns. Crops could be burned, livestock stolen, wells poisoned, and homes looted within hours. For the people of Cappadocia, the goal was not to defeat a stronger army, but to survive until it moved on. The underground city allowed an entire community to disappear from the battlefield. When danger approached, families descended below ground with their livestock, tools, food, and water before sealing the entrances behind them. To an invading force, the settlement above appeared abandoned. Without obvious signs that thousands of people were hiding beneath the earth, many armies had little reason to remain, especially when campaigns depended on speed rather than weeks of searching through an unfamiliar landscape. Even if an entrance was discovered, attackers immediately lost most of their advantages. Narrow corridors forced soldiers to move in single file, eliminating the benefit of superior numbers. Sharp bends limited visibility, while low ceilings slowed unfamiliar visitors, making coordinated assaults increasingly difficult. The most recognizable elements of Derinkuyu's defenses are its enormous circular stone doors, among the finest examples of passive military engineering from the ancient world. Carved from solid volcanic rock and weighing several hundred kilograms, these massive discs rolled across strategic passages from the inside whenever sections of the city needed to be sealed. Unlike wooden gates, they could not easily be burned or broken, and their smooth circular design offered almost no weak points for attackers to exploit. Each door contained a small opening at its center. Through this narrow aperture, defenders could observe approaching intruders, communicate with neighboring sections, or thrust spears at anyone attempting to force entry, all while remaining protected. The opening was far too small for an attacker to use, showing how even the smallest architectural details served multiple defensive purposes. The city's defenses were organized in layers rather than concentrated at a single entrance. Instead of relying on one final line of resistance, Derinkuyu could be divided into separate sectors, each protected by its own stone barriers and narrow access routes. If one level were breached, residents simply retreated deeper underground and sealed additional passages behind them, forcing every advance to begin again under equally unfavorable conditions. The underground environment itself became another weapon. Sound echoed unpredictably through the volcanic rock, allowing experienced inhabitants to detect approaching footsteps long before attackers appeared. At the same time, every torch or oil lamp immediately revealed an intruder's position, while residents familiar with the labyrinth could navigate with far greater confidence than outsiders struggling through darkness. Seen from this perspective, Derinkuyu was never meant to function like a castle that resisted sieges through military strength. Its purpose was to outlast danger by combining concealment, controlled movement, and patience until invading armies abandoned the search. Yet, even the most sophisticated defenses would have failed without the infrastructure needed to sustain thousands of people underground. The city's greatest achievement was not its stone doors or labyrinthine corridors, but the remarkable engineering that allowed an entire community to breathe, drink, cook, work, and survive beneath the earth while the world above remained at war. Designing a city that could keep invaders out was only half the challenge. The greater task was ensuring that thousands of people could live beneath the earth for days, weeks, or even months without the underground environment becoming more dangerous than the enemy outside. Every additional resident increased the demand for fresh air, clean water, food, sanitation, and space. Survival depended not on one engineering breakthrough, but on a network of systems working together as a self-contained ecosystem hidden inside solid rock. Among those systems, none was more important than ventilation. Modern visitors often expect the deepest levels to feel suffocating, yet one of the first things they notice is the steady movement of cool air through the corridors. At the heart of the city lies a massive vertical shaft extending through multiple levels, while dozens of smaller ventilation channels branch outward into living quarters, workshops, storage rooms, and gathering spaces. Together, they formed a passive airflow system requiring no machinery, relying entirely on differences in temperature and air pressure to maintain continuous circulation. Its effectiveness becomes even more impressive when considering the population it supported. Every person consumed oxygen and released carbon dioxide, while cooking fires, oil lamps, and livestock further reduced air quality. Without constant ventilation, an underground refuge housing thousands would quickly become uninhabitable. Instead, Derinkuyu's builders transformed these shafts into the city's invisible lungs, supplying fresh air even to its deepest chambers through a system that continues to function after centuries of abandonment. Water presented an equally critical challenge. No refuge could survive if its inhabitants had to return to the surface for drinking supplies. Archaeologists have identified numerous wells throughout the complex, several of which connected directly to underground aquifers rather than surface reservoirs. This prevented besieging forces from poisoning or controlling the city's main water supply. Even if enemy troops occupied the settlement above, those below could continue drawing fresh water without exposing themselves. Food storage took equal advantage of the underground environment. Chambers carved deep into volcanic tuff remain naturally cool throughout the year, creating ideal conditions for preserving grain, legumes, dried fruit, olive oil, and other supplies. Archaeologists have also uncovered kitchens, wine presses, and communal preparation areas, showing that the city supported daily life as well as emergency shelter. Animals formed another essential part of this carefully planned system. Livestock represented food, transportation, wealth, and the community's future, making them too valuable to abandon. Stables were typically located near the upper levels, where larger entrances made it easier to move animals while keeping odors and waste away from residential areas below. The city also contained spaces that extended beyond basic survival. Chapels carved into the rock suggest religious life continued underground, while larger chambers may have served as schools, meeting halls, or communal gathering places. These spaces reveal an important truth. Survival depends not only on food and water, but also on routine, social interaction, and a sense of normality during prolonged isolation. Perhaps Derinkuyu's greatest achievement was the efficiency with which every chamber served multiple purposes. Structural pillars supported the weight of the rock while dividing interior spaces. Ventilation shafts doubled as communication routes. Storage rooms strengthened surrounding walls while protecting food. Staircases connected different levels, yet also controlled movement during emergencies, allowing defenders to isolate sections of the city whenever necessary. Nothing was excavated without purpose because every cubic meter carved from solid stone required enormous effort. Viewed as a whole, Derinkuyu begins to resemble something surprisingly modern. Independent water supplies, passive ventilation, compartmentalized security, food reserves, and self-contained infrastructure remain the defining features of today's underground command centers and civil defense shelters. More than 1,000 years ago, the engineers of ancient Cappadocia solved many of the same survival problems that occupy modern designers. Yet one question remains unanswered. Who first conceived such an extraordinary city, and why did generations continue expanding it beneath the volcanic landscape of central Anatolia? Although Derinkuyu is often presented as the achievement of a single civilization, archaeological evidence tells a far more complex story. The underground city was not the product of one ambitious construction project, but the result of centuries of continuous expansion by different cultures responding to changing historical challenges. Like many ancient cities, it accumulated new levels, chambers, and defensive systems over generations, creating an architectural record of adaptation rather than a single moment of creation. Who first began excavating the complex remains one of Anatolian archaeology's greatest mysteries. Unlike the pyramids of Egypt or Roman aqueducts, Derinkuyu contains no inscriptions naming its founders, no royal decrees celebrating its construction, and no surviving historical account describing its origins. Archaeologists must instead reconstruct its history by comparing construction techniques, dating artifacts, and placing those discoveries within the broader history of central Anatolia. One theory links the earliest underground shelters to the Hittites, whose kingdom dominated much of Anatolia during the 2nd millennium BC. Facing constant military threats and possessing advanced engineering skills, they may have created the first subterranean refuges during periods of invasion. While plausible, no direct archaeological evidence has conclusively connected the deepest levels of Derinkuyu to the Hittite Empire. Another possibility points to the Phrygians, who settled central Anatolia after the collapse of Hittite rule. By the early 1st millennium BC, the region had become increasingly unstable, making underground refuges an obvious strategic advantage. Some archaeologists believe this was when naturally occurring cavities began expanding into larger defensive shelters capable of protecting entire communities. What appears far more certain is that Derinkuyu never remained static. Every major historical period left its mark on the city. As Persian influence spread across Anatolia, followed by Alexander the Great and later Roman rule, the underground network continued to evolve. New storage chambers were excavated, additional ventilation shafts were added, and increasingly sophisticated defensive features were incorporated into the growing labyrinth. The Byzantine period represents the city's best documented phase. Historical sources confirm that Cappadocia became an important refuge for Christian communities during times of political and religious conflict. Chapels, crosses carved into the rock, and other religious features indicate that Byzantine Christians used Derinkuyu extensively between the 7th and 10th centuries, especially during the Arab-Byzantine Wars. Yet these communities were almost certainly not the original builders. Instead, they inherited an existing underground network and expanded it to meet their own needs. This long process of adaptation explains why Derinkuyu often appears inconsistent to modern visitors. Some corridors display remarkably refined engineering, while others are comparatively simple. Certain chambers are spacious and carefully planned, whereas neighboring sections seem to have been excavated quickly. Rather than reflecting poor design, these differences reveal centuries of continuous construction, with each generation modifying the city to solve immediate practical problems instead of following a single architectural blueprint. Modern archaeological surveys have also shown that Derinkuyu was not an isolated achievement. More than 200 underground settlements have been identified across Cappadocia, and several of the largest, including Kaymakli, Ozkanak, Matsi, and Tatlarin, share remarkably similar engineering principles. Some may once have been connected by underground passages, although many of these tunnels remain collapsed or inaccessible. Even without confirmed connections, their distribution demonstrates that underground urbanism was not an exception but a regional survival strategy refined over many centuries. Seen in this broader context, Derinkuyu becomes far more than an archaeological curiosity. It represents the culmination of generations of accumulated knowledge about survival in one of history's most contested landscapes. Its builders may never be identified by name, but their greatest achievement was not simply carving a city beneath the earth. They created an entirely different philosophy of security, one based not on towering walls, but on invisibility, endurance, and engineering solutions so effective that they continue to inspire admiration more than 1,000 years after the last inhabitants emerged into the sunlight. Standing inside Derinkuyu today, it is difficult not to compare this underground city with the bunkers and civil defense facilities of the modern world. Although more than 1,000 years separate them, both were built to answer the same question: how can an entire community survive when the surface becomes too dangerous to inhabit? Secure water supplies, independent ventilation, compartmentalized living spaces, protected entrances, and the ability to function without outside support remain the defining features of underground survival systems, whether carved into volcanic rock or built from reinforced concrete. The difference lies in how these goals were achieved. Modern bunkers depend on electricity, pumps, filtration systems, electronic monitoring, and constant maintenance. If enough of those systems fail, even the most advanced shelter quickly becomes uninhabitable. Derinkuyu followed a very different philosophy. Instead of overcoming nature with technology, its builders worked alongside natural forces. Gravity moved water, differences in air pressure circulated fresh air, and volcanic tuff regulated temperatures throughout the year. The city required remarkably little external energy, making it resilient in ways many modern facilities struggle to match. That efficiency also explains why Derinkuyu has survived centuries of abandonment. Mechanical infrastructure deteriorates when maintenance stops, but passive engineering continues working as long as the surrounding geology remains stable. The ventilation shafts still circulate air. The underground chambers still maintain nearly constant temperatures. The volcanic rock continues to support vast underground spaces without artificial reinforcement. The city's essential systems remain functional today for the same reason they worked centuries ago. They rely on the landscape itself rather than on technology that eventually wears out. Derinkuyu challenges many modern assumptions about technological progress. Ancient societies are often seen as technologically limited because they lacked electricity, machinery, and industrial manufacturing. Yet engineering is ultimately measured not by the sophistication of the tools available, but by the effectiveness of the solutions they create. Faced with repeated invasions, political instability, and limited resources, the people of Cappadocia designed an underground environment capable of protecting entire communities through careful planning, geological knowledge, and an exceptional understanding of interconnected systems. Their achievement shows that innovation often depends more on understanding a problem than on possessing advanced technology. The city also reveals something important about the people who built it. Derinkuyu was never intended to become a permanent home. Every feature reflects the expectation that one day its inhabitants would return to the surface. Storage rooms existed because supplies were temporary. Churches helped preserve faith and social order during uncertainty. Defensive doors existed because the danger above was expected to pass. Every corridor, ventilation shaft, and communal space was built around the belief that survival underground was only a temporary chapter. Perhaps that is why the city continues to resonate today. It is far more than an archaeological curiosity or an impressive engineering achievement. Derinkuyu represents one of humanity's most sophisticated responses to uncertainty, demonstrating that resilience is not always expressed through military power or monumental architecture. Sometimes it emerges through patience, adaptability, and the ability to reshape the environment so ordinary people can endure extraordinary circumstances. Even after decades of research, many parts of the underground network remain collapsed or unexplored. New technologies, including 3D mapping, ground-penetrating radar, and digital modeling, continue to reveal previously unknown features across Cappadocia, suggesting that the full scale of this subterranean world is still not completely understood. Every new discovery reinforces the same conclusion. What appears to be an ordinary Anatolian town conceals one of the ancient world's most ambitious engineering projects. When visitors finally return to daylight, they often leave with a very different impression than when they entered. The greatest wonder of Derinkuyu is not simply that an underground city exists beneath central Turkey, or even that thousands of people could survive there during times of war. Its greatest achievement is the realization that some of history's most remarkable civilizations expressed their ingenuity not through monuments reaching toward the sky, but through invisible cities descending into the earth, where survival depended not on conquering nature, but on understanding it.